welcome back. Um, the show you're about to see that I videoed was held in Bluffton, Indiana by the Pharoahs Car Club. It was the Parlor City Run. It's their one they have every year for charity. And yes, I took the Buick, and the Buick didn't win. I haven't been winning lately, so I've just been enjoying the shows and trying to have a good time with other people. They said they had 101 cars there, and they probably did. It was a nice little show. It was held in the parking lot of a business up there. And I gotta tell you, I really don't care much for car shows in parking lots. The asphalt's warm when the sun's beating down. You can't put up a canopy because of wind. There's no way to stake them down in a parking lot. So they're not my favorite places to have car shows, but I see every now and then you have to have them there. That's just the way it is, and a lot of people do. But it'd be nice if you had some shade and stuff around. But here for about 3 or 4 minutes, I'm just gonna kind of like rant about myself, my poor, pitiful me, or pity party, or whatever. I've been doing shows since I was 21, so 40 years now. And I've had a lot of great shows and a lot of bad shows. But I gotta tell you, things have changed so much, so much. When I first started going to car shows, they had a thing called goodie bags. You went there, you registered your car, and they gave you a bag full of little goodies, like stickers, pins. Some shows gave playing cards, all kinds of things. The one Pontiac show I'd gone to gave playing cards, lapel pins, license plate frames, all kinds of things Pontiac related. It was probably 30 or 40 things in the bag, And back then you got these bags, and hell, what was in the bags were worth more than what you paid to go to the shows. And it kind of made it fun to see what you get in a goodie bag. What are they going to have? Heck, I've gone to car shows and there's actually McGuire's quick detailing in the bag. That was fantastic. But today's car shows, there's no such thing as goodie bags. You don't get anything. They might have some 10 or 20 door prizes at random, and normally they're baseball caps or 3 or 4 microfiber towels, or maybe a bucket that you can wash your car with, a 5-gallon bucket. And it's really disappointing how it's gone downhill, and the prices have gone up to enter these shows, The one show before this one, if you looked at the video, that was $30 to park downtown, and that's because all the exotics were downtown. So those people had the money and paid the $30 to park down there. And for me to walk 2 blocks and be out in a park where I could set up a canopy in the grass for $10 was better off, because no tents were allowed to be set up in town, which obviously you can't stake them down anyhow. And you're paying $30? Well, out there in the park, sure, we didn't get the tens of thousands of people they probably had downtown, but we had plenty out there. There were people that made it over to the park and stuff. There were no awards in the park, so we were just there participating. One other thing, I'm getting older, and it's kind of upsetting that 10 years ago, there were like 20 of us that ran in a group and went to car shows. We picked out shows and we all ran together. We stayed as a group, a little convoy. Anyone had a problem, there were people there to fix it and that. And it seems like every year I'm losing a friend or a fellow car club member, and they're dwindling quick. And the older I get, I realize my time's coming eventually. And like this year, my wife and I have been going to car shows by ourselves. There's no one to travel with. They're just random people. We go now, we don't sit under 3 canopies together with 15, 20 people, laughing, carrying on. Now it's just her and I, and you try to make conversation with people next to you, and they're on their own little group, and you really can't get involved in their groups. You don't know where they're from anyhow. You're probably not going to see them again till maybe 5 or 6 shows later. So it's kind of disheartening to know that things are dwindling. That's one of the reasons why I'm selling a couple of my vehicles. It's just not as fun as it used to be. This old Buick was done over 20 years ago, and it's got scrapes, nicks, scratches, paint chipping, engine area looks bad. It needs to have the motor pulled and repainted. Just over 20 years of driving it everywhere. It's just taking its toll on it. So we really like this car, and we take this car to shows just to go to the show. We really don't expect to win in this. When we do, we're pleasantly surprised, but it's just not such a great victory without your friends around to celebrate with you. So I'm not sure how long I'm going to keep doing this. Today I was pretty bummed about going to this one show. I was with nobody but me and my wife, and I love spending time with my wife, don't get me wrong, but there's no one there to socialize and laugh and joke with and reminisce, because most of them are gone. And today's sitting on that hot asphalt, and I wasn't feeling it. I'm just not feeling car shows that much anymore. I used to get excited about going. I wanted to go early. I wanted to get there, and now the show starts at 8 o'clock and registration's 8 to noon. I don't want to get there till 11:30. There's just no one really to sit there and enjoy the shows with anymore, which kind of sucks. But hey, that's enough of my ranting and feeling sorry for myself. Please enjoy the video. watching. Later.